Hey guys, what's up? It's Drew here, and today we're going to be taking a look at my favorite weapon in Destiny 2, and that is Crimson, the exotic burst hand cannon. This weapon is my favorite for many reasons, from just the aesthetics alone all the way to the functionality of the weapon. We've got quite a bit to talk about though, so let's get straight into it. As always, we'll start with our archetype, and this weapon is a burst hand cannon. It's the only one of its kind. It fires at 415 RPM and has 92 impact. It gets 24 crit damage per headshot, that's 72 per burst, and 17 body damage, totaling at 51 per burst. It has a 1.07 optimal time to kill, taking 7 crit and 2 body, and a 1.5 second base time to kill, taking 12 body shots. Of course, this is against a 5 resilience guardian. It has an average 1.3 second time to kill, taking 4 crit, 6 body shots against, again, a 5 resilience guardian. But it's also important to mention that against a 1 resilience guardian, you can get a 0.97 second time to kill with 8 critical shots. Comparing this weapon's time to kill to other weapons in the meta and popular weapons, for optimal time to kill, Vigilance Wing obviously wins this with its 0.83 second optimal time to kill, with of course the caveat of being quite unlikely to hit on a regular basis. But otherwise, Crimson and Graviton Lance have nearly the exact same time to kill, and in game, I don't think you'd be able to really tell the difference. And in a gunfight, I think these weapons would most likely just end up in a trade. Although I didn't show them, 110 hand cannons would also have a very similar result with optimal time to kill, because they fire at a similar rate of fire as the Crimson's bursts, but more on that later. As per the original developer commentary of Crimson in the reveal stream, they said that the Crimson would kill on the first bullet of the killing burst. And using its optimal time to kill now, Crimson doesn't kill on the first bullet of the killing burst, as it takes 9 shots. That's 7 crit, 2 body on 5 resilience, and that would mean it kills on the last shot of the last burst, and that TTK puts it in line with the high impact hand cannons. That being said, a more average 4 crit 6 body does kill on the first shot of the killing burst though, and puts it in line with the time to kill of the 140 RPM hand cannons. So maybe this is what the devs could have meant by this. This is also why during the average time to kill comparison, I showed a 140 hand cannon hitting its optimal time to kill to show the comparison between the Crimson and the 140 hand cannon. When recording the time to kill for the Crimson, or the average time to kill, I did make a mistake. However, I went for a 3 crit 7 body time to kill, when really again it should be a 4 crit 6 body. You can probably tell that it did kill on the second shot of the last burst. If I had hit 4 crit 6 body, which is much harder to do in rapid succession purposely, then it would kill on the first shot of the last burst. My apologies. I think you guys understand the point here though. Regardless, I think it's really interesting that this weapon has time to kill traits of both hand cannon archetypes, the 110s and the 140s, and this is part of what makes it so good in my opinion. In an average time to kill scenario, viewing though, hitting 1 burst of all heads and 2 additional bursts to the body still has a faster average time to kill of about 1.17 seconds, give or take. Again, if you perfectly track 12 bullets in a row. If not, a full 3 kill burst is 1.33 seconds and will get beat out by the Crimson, or at least get into a tie with the Crimson's 4 crit 6 body. Compared to the Graviton Lance though, Crimson stays nearly identical in terms of time to kill against it when comparing the base time to kill and, like I said earlier, the optimal time to kill. What gives Crimson an edge in my opinion in time to kill is similar to what makes the V-Wing great, and it's that it has multiple time to kill scenarios or steps for different possible time to kills. It can get the time to kill of a high impact hand cannon and comparable to the Graviton, but still, if you miss its optimal time to kill, hit the time to kill of a 140 hand cannon with less than 50% crit ratio, whereas Graviton Lance either hits a 3 burst headshot for its optimal or misses and gets punished with its base time to kill. Of course, then you have to take into account other factors, like Crimson's burst is a longer duration than that of the Gravitons, but that's a discussion that we're about to get into in a moment. Moving on to the perks of the Crimson, of course, since it's an exotic, it has a bunch of perks, but no choices, so a lot of them, in my opinion, are quite meaningless, but we're going to be focusing on 2 perks. Its intrinsic, Banned Weapon, which is it's a 3-round burst hand cannon, which I mentioned, and the other one, Cruel Remedy. Kills with this weapon heal the wielder, precision kills also refill the magazine. Let's start with Banned Weapon and really analyze the Crimson's burst capabilities. Because Crimson has the characteristics of both a hand cannon and a pulse rifle, we'll be comparing it to a little bit of both in terms of its rate of fire and how long its burst is. Crimson finds itself matching somewhat closely to the 110 hand cannon rate of fire per shot, but the total RPM is just a bit higher than the 390 RPM pulses at 415 RPM. Also, Crimson has a longer total time per burst, so you need to track your target or quote-unquote paint your target for a longer duration of time than the traditional pulse rifle. These two factors come together to make a weapon that feels like a true crossover between a pulse and a hand cannon, with a good set of benefits and trade-offs. Its burst duration, though, as much as it's a characteristic, is a trade-off compared to most pulses, and keeps it from dealing instant damage on target like a hand cannon. I counted the duration of each burst and the time between shots of different pulse rifles and high-impact hand cannons. I did my best to count this frame by frame in Adobe Premiere using 60 FPS gameplay. If this is a little off, I apologize, but it should get the right idea across. One Crimson burst is about 0.12 seconds, and with its delay until the next burst is about 0.24 seconds total. A 110 hand cannon shot, of course, is dealt instantly, but it has about a 0.31 second delay until you can fire the next shot. This means as much as they are similar, the Crimson does have a little bit faster rate of fire than a 110 hand cannon, but it's pretty close between the two. The 390 RPM pulse rifles have a 0.08 second duration per burst, and including the delay between shots, it is a 0.27 second total. So we can see here just how much longer Crimson's burst is. It's about 0.04 seconds longer, which really, truth be told, isn't really that bad, especially since it's kind of made up for by having a lower delay between shots. This does, at the end of the day, though, mean that you're going to be able to play cover better with normal pulses. Against the Vigilance wing, the V-wing has a 0.16 second burst duration. That is double the time of a normal pulse and just a bit higher by 0.04 seconds above the Crimson's burst. Now, including the delay between shots, it's a total 0.33 seconds. This means there's overall a lot more commitment required to shooting the V-wing's bursts. Finally, on the opposite end of the spectrum, we have the Graviton Lance, which is a 0.04 second duration per burst, which is incredible, but still, like the 390 pulses, with the delay between shots, has a 0.27 second duration total. This does again mean that the Graviton has overall lower commitment than the Crimson and can deal more damage at once than the Crimson, but at the same time has a pretty long pause between its shots, and this is where the Crimson has a bit more of an edge because it can continuously fire bullets. Considering Crimson's burst capabilities, we also have to think that it deals the same damage per burst as a 390 pulse, Graviton Lance, and high impact hand cannon, which is indeed a benefit since it has the versatility and multiple ranges of a hand cannon, but the same damage output and forgiveness of a pulse. Crimson can deal 72 damage, 65 damage, 58 damage, or 51 damage per burst, depending on how many headshots you get, starting with all headshots ending up at no headshots. As a hand cannon, this is great because it maintains the potential of a 110 hand cannon, still while being far more forgiving than a 110 hand cannon. Of course, again, the trade-off though is that it's a burst weapon and doesn't deal all of its damage instantly. So that's about all I have to say about the 3 burst characteristic of this hand cannon and how it breaks down against other pulses, and how it maintains its characteristic as a hand cannon with its time to kill scenarios. The second perk, Cruel Remedy, is pretty self-explanatory. Like I said, you get a kill and it heals you, and precision kills refill the magazine. What this allows you to do is it allows the user to continuously re-engage in fights without reloading or worrying about your health, because if you're winning fights, you're getting kills, you'll be able to stay in the fight for that much longer and play that much more aggressively. This really is the best utility of the weapon. It even gives it a ton of utility in PvE, and I'd love to talk about that, but this is a strictly PvP review. I'd like to do PvE reviews in the future, and if that's something you're interested in, tell me in the comments below. Taking a look at our stats now, we have 60 range, 93 with the masterwork, and 75 target acquisition, 97 stability, and 55 recoil direction, 42 handling, and 64 reload, as well as 24 bullets in the mag, which roughly means 8 shots. Starting with stability, this is really quite interesting on the Crimson. There's very little screen recoil to compensate for, and it's more similar to how pulse rifles recoil than how hand cannons would. And the view model doesn't kick like a traditional hand cannon. The recoil moves the weapon's model for each shot on the burst, but seems to mainly affect the model of the weapon and less of the actual vertical screen recoil you'd be wanting to compensate for. There's very little vertical recoil you'll actually be compensating for, and it's quite easy to do so, which makes sense considering it has 97 stability. As I mentioned though, the recoil seems to affect the weapon's model more than anything, making it flail about in different directions for every shot, and as you shoot faster, it makes it harder to maintain precision as it feels rather random, and even makes it harder to see the crosshairs at times. This stability model on the Crimson, which is quite unique, does limit the Crimson from ever being as precise as a traditional hand cannon, where you can be pinpoint accurate with each shot. However, like I mentioned, there's very little vertical screen recoil, so using the weapon and landing shots revolves more around ignoring the view model's kick and keeping your eyes on the center of the screen while aiming for the upper body or chest area of a target. Otherwise, beyond that, each burst is somewhat random, and that is the most you can do to land shots reliably. I think it's important to mention that if you're playing on PC, playing on a higher FOV will result in the weapon's view model covering the crosshair quite regularly. As for range now, with a base 60 range stat, Crimson starts to experience damage drop off at about 31 meters, which is pretty well in line with every other hand cannon for the most part. With its masterwork though, it brings the range stat up to 93, which is pretty insane, which it then begins to start experiencing drop off at 34 meters, and that well puts it above most every hand cannon, except maybe Jack Queen King. Even without the masterwork, range never really felt like an issue as far as damage output went, or at least compared to the weapon's ability to land shots reliably. Due to the random or sporadic recoil pattern, it's quite difficult to land repeated headshots, and it felt quite inaccurate overall, which led to unreliable gunfights and a hurt potential time to kill. With the masterwork, shots landed far more reliably, and it would seem that even when aiming for the body at range, headshots would still connect. It doesn't sound like a huge difference since the optimal range is only increased by 3 meters, but the shot registration allows you to compete at much longer ranges far more reliably. This isn't to say that it should be your choice weapon for ranged engagements, or to say that it can really compete with Graviton, Vigilance Wing, or Jade Rabbit in their respective ranges, but it makes the weapon far more versatile than it already is, being able to perform in close, medium, and sometimes long-range engagements. Without the masterwork though, this weapon still has all the versatility of a hand cannon and a bit beyond that, performing excellently in all mid-range engagements, and thanks to the low zoom characteristic of a hand cannon, can still perform well in close-range engagements, again, just like you would expect a hand cannon to be able to do. Handling is one of the lower stats on the Crimson at 42, but in my experience using it, it never really felt that sluggish. I mean, it doesn't feel snappy like a Sunshot, but it's far from unusable. Reload felt pretty average for a hand cannon. I never really felt like I was kept out of the fight for long, and I was able to actually back off, reload quite quickly, and get back into the engagement more often than not. The auto reload on headshots is really the icing on the cake. It makes reloading far less of an occurrence, and all these kind of stats of reload and the instant reload combined really makes up for its smaller mag size. As much as it had a smaller mag, because of those factors, it really didn't feel like it had that small of a mag. Now, to talk about our key points and wrap things up, I think the Crimson really is the perfect crossover between a hand cannon and a pulse rifle. It really defines what it means to be a burst hand cannon, without exactly feeling like a pulse rifle or a sidearm. It offers a competitive time to kill with the potential of a 110 hand cannon, but the forgiveness and multiple time to kill scenarios of a 390 RPM pulse rifle, while still even matching the time to kill of a 140 hand cannon. It's got a competitive base or body shot time to kill to go along with its optimal that rivals that of the Graviton Lance. It's got the versatility of a hand cannon, the low zoom sights, the good handling, and the ability to dominate all areas of mid-range. It's got very little recoil to compensate for, but a random or sporadic recoil pattern or spread, which at the same time keeps it from being ever as precise as a traditional hand cannon. Like I said, it dominates mid-range, but becomes spotty and inconsistent perhaps at longer ranges. The masterwork though significantly improves its shot registration at range and makes it far more consistent. It's got a longer burst than an average pulse rifle, requiring you to track a target longer than an average pulse as a trade-off, and give it that 3-burst hand cannon feel. The health regen and instant reload keeps you in the fight and able to win battles one after another. Anyways guys, that's all I have to say about the Crimson. I hope you enjoyed the video and the review. I tried to go as in-depth as possible, of course. Like I said, this is my favorite weapon. I want to do it justice and want to talk about every little bit of it. Hopefully this highlighted a lot of its strengths and its weaknesses and how exactly it's a crossover between a pulse rifle and a hand cannon, and done so well, I think. And if this sparks some interest, then try it out and tell me what you think about it in the comments. On a side note, before we finish things up, I am still doing the Planet of Peace emblem giveaway. You can still enter. All you have to do is subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and comment down below with your Xbox Live, your PSN, or your Battle.net so I know how to contact you if you win. Again guys, really hope you enjoyed this video. Put a ton of work into it, so I really hope it was beneficial and you enjoyed. As always, it's been Drew here today, and I'll catch you guys later.
I don't.